Hey, and welcome to In Real Life.
So how do you release the kingdom of God into the world of healthcare? In Real Life is a show where we look at exactly that to help us get to grips with how to live supernaturally and release the kingdom of God in our daily lives.
That's right. Each show we're going to bring you good news and practical teachings on how to bring heaven into the world of healthcare so that you can live each day with confidence. This week we're joined by none other than Mike Von Fraunhofer.
Hi.
Here. So tell us all about your day job, Mike, and about what you get up to here at Eastgate.
So in terms of my day job, I have a portfolio career. So I am a partner in general practice. I'm also on the governing body of a CCG, which is the commissioning organisation for localities. And I'm also a senior appraiser for NHS England. Those are my three main jobs. At church, myself and my wife, we've been running the Fire Starters course, which is a Bethel Living Supernaturally course, which we've been running for years. And now we run the Kingdom Culture course, which is Eastgate's way of introducing people into the supernatural culture and helping them integrate into the church. And we do that with a team of people.
Mike, in today's culture where everything seems to be so PC, it could be seen as being really risky to, as a medical professional in a hospital, in a surgery, to offer to pray for someone. But your experience is that actually spirituality could be a legitimate part of healthcare provision?
Well, you're right. I mean, I've heard phrases like it's illegal to pray for patients, or you're going to get in trouble with the governing body, or basically you can't tell anyone about it. It's perceived amongst the Christians that it's just not a thing to do, that it's not allowed. And that's just not true. The Equality Act in 2010 actually gives us a right not to be discriminated against because of our faith. So on the one hand, we've got that freedom, the freedom to exert and be who we are. But on the other hand, you've got the patient and their rights not to be preached at, or someone, tell them they're going to go to hell and that kind of thing. And you have to balance that sort of the two rights, as it were. And into that there is some problems if people get it wrong. And that's, I think, why people get scared. But the truth is that all the governing bodies, if you're a healthcare professional, there's a governing body guidance for almost every kind of profession that works in healthcare. And it's too long to get into that in detail, but if I take one, which is the GMC one, basically what they say is that you can discuss your faith if you're asked directly about it by a patient, or if they indicate that they'd welcome such a discussion. And that "or" is actually quite often forgotten. So everyone knows that basically they can only talk about it if someone asks them. But actually, the fact that they might welcome a discussion allows us to invite a conversation with patients. And basically what I've worked out is that if you just ask a standard 3-part question, you will succeed in getting cover for all these guidances and all the rest of it, and regulatory advice. So I just simply say, do you have any kind of faith or religious beliefs? Now, 60% of the population will believe in some form of God. But if someone says no, then I would probably take that as a sign it's best not to push in that direction. So unless I feel really strongly, but most people say, I believe in some kind of God. I'm a Buddhist, I'm a Catholic, a lot of people just say, I kind of like to think there might be someone. So I'll take that as allowing me to ask the next question, which is, there's something in my personal life I think might be helpful for you. Would you be interested in hearing about it? Now, patients are always curious. Once you start offering something for your own personal life, they nearly always will say yes. So they'll nod or say yes. And so then I'll add the third question, which is, actually, I'm a Christian. I'm part of a church that believes in healing and healing prayer. Would you be interested in how that might be helpful for you? So I've then told them I'm moving away from straightforward medicine into something personal and then into something religious. If they then indicate that they're interested in hearing what I've got to say, that's consent. And therefore, basically, they've decided, or they've indicated they'd welcome a discussion. I can then go on and have that discussion without fear.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That is so brilliant, actually. It just seems so straightforward, and you kind of wonder how that could ever have been a problem or an issue. How did you come about this?
Well, I suppose for me personally, it came about in 2006. I was a leader in the Vineyard Church, and I was at a leaders' conference, and Vineyard obviously is based around John Wimber and the healing sort of side of things. And the leadership there was sort of saying, we've forgotten about healing, we've sort of let it go a bit, and we really need to push healing. And so they kept doing these things like, how do we find people we can pray for healing? You know, they tried to come up with ideas and ways you could find people you could pray for. And every time they did something, God just said to me so strongly, you don't need to go find people that need healing. They knock on your door and ask permission to come in. You know, they're queuing up literally to come see you. You're beating them back with a stick. And he just spoke really clearly to me and he said, I want you to do Monday to Friday what you're happy to do on a Sunday. Yeah. So I went back to my surgery, which is at the time was in South Manchester. It was a non-Christian partnership, so 2 non-Christian partners. And I basically felt I needed to tell them this is what I was going to start doing. And so they quite rightly said, well, how are you going to do that? What's going to be your thing? And I believe it was just a God moment. And he reminded me how we give bad news, which is basically we don't just say, you've got cancer, you're going to die. You know, we do it in a sort of escalating thing. We ask, give little nuggets and show more and more. And I just felt God say, just start with a nugget. So the first nugget is, do you have a faith? And then the next nugget is, you know, I think I could help you with some information. Would you be interested in it? And the next nugget is, I'm a Christian. Would you be interested in hearing about that? And out of that became the sort of the way I approach things. And when I became a senior appraiser some years later, and I really got into guidance and reading all this stuff, I realised that was exactly what they were looking for. That was the approach they wanted. And so there it was.
Wow. So Mike, you've been doing this since 2006? Yeah. You must have seen some pretty amazing things in your surgery. Tell us a bit about that.
I have, and you know, it waxes and wanes. There are some days I'll pray every day for a patient. I have this morning, but obviously I can't share that because there are confidentiality issues. But every now and then I get a patient who's willing for me to share a story. So let me share one that happened only a few months ago. There was a young mum who came to see me because she had anxiety and depression, and she had 2 young kids. And basically, you know, she was struggling. She couldn't find peace. And I was doing the normal medical things that we do. And I did the 3-question thing, and just in the end she agreed. And so I prayed for her. And she had a real impartation of peace, probably for the first time. And so later on, over the weeks and months, she asked me if I could pray for her again. And so I did it, and the same thing happened again, another impartation of peace. So I then sort of said, well, why don't you try coming to church? And I discovered then that actually a relative of hers was a Christian who happened to go to church. So she was open to that. So she started going to church. And then funnily enough, her husband, she started coming here at Eastgate actually. But then I discovered that her husband, who's not a Christian, started sending her to church because of the impact it was having upon her. She then did a Why Jesus course while she was here. And after a few months, I was able to chat to her about where she was. And I had the opportunity to bring her to Jesus, and she invited Jesus into her life. And then last November, I got a brilliant text. I was texted a photograph of her being baptized at the church she's now joined.
That's so cool.
So that was all based on me taking a risk and saying, how would you feel if I prayed for you? Yeah. I mean, there are lots of other stories. I could go on and on.
Just want to hear all of them. That's awesome. Now, it's so good because God is actually imparting wisdom into healthcare practitioners so that they can do this exactly the way you're saying that you've done it, in an honouring way to their employers and in an honouring way to the codes of conduct. Yeah. Is that what you found?
Well, it is important, and certainly in Kent, there have been 2 high-profile cases where things haven't gone right and people probably haven't honoured the management and the structures they're in. So I'm really keen that people do this in a way that is in line with what their trusts or the practices are willing to do. And in fact, there's two people that I work with in the church, both of whom are trying to talk to their managers about making wellness and bringing Christian faith as part of the wellness agenda. They're talking with their managers how to bring that about, and I've helped them with wording and how to sort of get the governance right. It is vital, and that's the way you do it. It's not some undercurrent secret thing. If you do it open above board, I mean, with me, there's a READ code, which is a medical diagnostic code, that says laying on of hands with prayer. So actually there's an official READ code you can put in the medical records, and it's in trust software as well. It's a national recode. So, I encourage people to say, don't be shy about it, document it, and write with verbal consent. That's like any other procedure you do. I'm really keen that we do it right.
Amazing.
Yeah, Mike, as you speak, I get really excited because it's phenomenal. It's like there's a major breakthrough and a shift to see more Christian faith expressed in, I'd love to go to the doctor's surgery and have somebody pray for me. Where do you see it going? What does the future look like?
Well, I think things are shifting, and it's partly because of the wellness sort of debate and the realisation, and the NHS has realised that they haven't got enough resources to care for people with all the need. But equally, there's also been a push for people to be aware of just wellness as a concept. So they've realised that an absence of illness is not enough. And so I think that's opening up opportunities that we wouldn't have had before. So when we set up the Healing Centre, we wanted it to be an NHS resource. We wanted people to be able to refer to us. So almost uniquely in the country, we had an NHS governance about it. Pete and I, when we set it up with a team, we wanted to have the rules and regulations right in the way the NHS would accept. But when we tried to get involved with the CCG, they didn't want to know. They basically said, well, you're a religious organisation. We don't want to use you. But about 8 months ago, I was in a commissioning meeting and they were talking about the wellness and wanted to actually have a protected learning time event for all the GPs, about 150 GPs, talking about wellness. And I just said, I'd like to talk about the Healing Centre. I'd like to talk about the results we've had. And I had permission to do that. So I gave a talk on faith and medicine, allies or enemies. And I talked about the Healing Centre. I talked about the results we've had. I've talked about how we work. And it's all done under that wellness umbrella. And I think that's how we are going to progress. And I think nationally there is an openness to involve faith-based organisations, to involve community organisations to help people. It's a golden opportunity. If we're organised and well thought out, we can step right in with the good news.
In the next episode, we're going to be speaking to Dave Foggan from the Heaven in Healthcare team, and he's going to be speaking to us about releasing healing through the presence. So if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to click the subscribe button for more episodes like this.
Yep, and if you'd like to access every single episode, then head over to heaveninhealthcare.com and sign up there.
See you next time.
Bye.